I cut contact with my father after his girlfriend humiliated me at a wedding. 1 year later, he crashed my engagement party with news that left me speechless. I, 32F, never thought I'd be sharing this story, but I need some outside perspective. My relationship with my dad, Tom, 58M, has always been complicated, but recent events have left me questioning everything. To understand the current situation, I need to go back to the beginning. My parents met in college. My mom was studying literature, and my dad was the charming business major who swept her off her feet. They got married right after graduation, and I came along a few years later. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family, but there were always cracks beneath the surface. My earliest memories are a mix of happy family picnics and tense, silent dinners. Dad worked long hours at his marketing firm, climbing the corporate ladder with single-minded focus. Mom stayed home with me, but I remember her often being sad or frustrated. It wasn't until I was older that I understood why. When I was 10, everything fell apart. I came home from school one day to find my mom crying in the kitchen. That's when I learned that my dad had been having an affair with his much younger secretary. The divorce was messy and painful. My mom was devastated, but she fought hard to make sure I had a stable home life. Dad moved out, but he made an effort to stay involved in my life. We had weekly dinner dates where he'd ask about school and my friends. He came to my soccer games and piano recitals. On the surface, it seemed like he was trying to be a good dad, but looking back, I realized how self-centered he often was. Our conversations always seemed to circle back to him, his work, his new apartment, his latest hobby. As I entered my teens, I started noticing a pattern. Dad always seemed to have a new girlfriend, and they were always young, usually in their late 20s or early 30s. At first, I didn't think much of it. Dad was handsome and charismatic, and I guess I thought it was normal for divorced men to date younger women. But then came Sarah. I was 15 when Dad introduced us. Sarah was 28, only 13 years older than me. She was nice enough, but it felt weird. She tried to bond with me over pop music and teen movies, but it just made me uncomfortable. I remember feeling relieved when they broke up after a few months. Throughout high school, there was a parade of young women in Dad's life. Some tried to befriend me, others ignored me. I started dreading our dinner dates, never knowing who might show up or how I was supposed to act around them. When I was 18 and heading off to college, Dad started dating Candace, 25F at the time. She was different from the others, more assertive, more interested in being part of Dad's life. And unlike the others, she stuck around. College was a relief in many ways. I was able to build my own life, make my own friends, without the constant presence of Dad and his girlfriends. But holidays and breaks were always tense. Candace had moved in with Dad, and suddenly my childhood home felt foreign to me. I remember one Thanksgiving break when I was 20. I came home to find that my room had been turned into a home gym. All my things, posters, books, childhood mementos, had been boxed up and moved to the attic. When I confronted Dad about it, he seemed genuinely confused about why I was upset. "But you're at college now," he said. "You don't need the room anymore." That was the first time I really saw how Dad's relationship with Candace was changing things. My presence in his life seemed to be shrinking, replaced by her wants and needs. After college, I moved back home temporarily while job hunting. That's when the real issues with Candace started. She treated me like an unwelcome guest, making comments about how long I was staying and how I needed to grow up and get my own place. Dad, to my shock and hurt, often agreed with her. One night, I overheard them talking about me. Candace was complaining about how I was cramping their style, saying they couldn't be themselves with me around. Dad's response broke my heart. "I know, babe," he said. "We'll figure out how to get her moved out soon." I confronted them the next day, and Dad tried to backpedal, saying I had misunderstood. But the damage was done. I moved out within a week, hurt and feeling betrayed. For the next few years, my relationship with Dad became increasingly strained. We'd see each other occasionally, but it was always with Candace hovering nearby. She'd make subtle digs about my appearance or my job, and Dad would just laugh it off or tell me to lighten up. I tried to talk to Dad about it several times, but he always dismissed my concerns. "That's just how Candace is," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." But it did mean something to me. It meant that my feelings didn't matter to him as much as keeping Candace happy. Things came to a head last month at my cousin's wedding. I brought my boyfriend, Jake, 34M, and we were having a good time until Candace had too much to drink. She started loudly comparing herself to the other women at the wedding, including me. She bragged about how she could still fit into her high school jeans and how some people, while looking pointedly at me, let themselves go. I was furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene at the wedding. I pulled Dad aside and told him Candace's behavior was unacceptable. To my surprise, he defended her, saying she was just joking and that I needed to lighten up. That's when I lost it. I told him I was done with both of them and their toxic behavior. Since then, Dad has been calling and texting nonstop, saying I'm overreacting and that family is more important than anything. But I don't feel like I'm part of his family anymore. Candace is his family now. I'm torn. Part of me wants to cut ties completely, but another part of me remembers the dad who used to take me fishing and help me with my homework. The dad who taught me to ride a bike and who cried at my high school graduation. I know that version of him still exists somewhere, but I don't know how to reach him anymore.